Call the May 5th, 2025 regular meeting of the Union County Board of Commissioners to order. At this time, I would like to recognize Vice Chair Commissioner Brian Helms for the invocation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If you're so inclined, please join me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we just want to thank you, Lord. Thank you for all the blessings that you've bestowed on not only our county, but our state and also our nation. Lord, as we progress through this meeting tonight, I pray that you grant this board guidance and also fortitude to not only do what's right, but do what's right when it's not easy. Lord, I also want to pray for your blessings upon Christina Helms and her family as she mourns the loss of her father. Lord, I ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. The next item on the agenda is informal comments from the community. Has anyone signed up to speak for informal comments? We do have a couple of people that have signed up. We will recognize the speakers for informal comments. Each speaker must address the board from the lectern and begin their remarks by giving their name, stating whether they are residents of Union County, and indicating the municipality within which they reside, if any. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to make remarks. A tone may sound at the conclusion of your remarks. A speaker may not yield any of his or her time to another speaker. Speakers may not discuss matters which are the subject of public hearings, and they must be courteous in their language and presentation. Restatements or repetitive comments by the same speaker, whether at the same or separate meetings, may be ruled out of order and terminated by the chair. Personal attacks will not be tolerated, and speakers may leave written comments and or supporting documents, if any, with the clerk to the board. Okay, the first speaker we have signed up is Bryant Lindsay.
Madam Chair, I appreciate the recognition. I don't want to spend a lot of time on identifying me because the time is very limited. You have some identifying material about me with the information that I provided to you. I came to you, I wanted to come very directly to the point. I think all of you are aware of America 250 and America 250 NC. And in North Carolina, at this point, I think of the 100 counties, about 77 of the counties have formed county committees, and that, as you know, qualifies them for some funding from the state. At least it did initially. It's not clear, whether money will be there, for the duration. But those counties that signed up months ago each received $10,000 for signing up, which they could use for planning and then use that to qualify for additional fundings. I can't think of another county in the state that can benefit more with the revolutionary history that exists, in this county, named for, President Monroe, and including Waxhaws, which was part of the Battle of the Waxhaws, and all of that ties into the Overmountain Victory, North Carolina State Trail, and so that's what I wanted to bring to you briefly. If you will look at the map that I gave you, you'll see how it's marked. The counties that are in the darker gray. The counties that are not yet in are in the lighter gray. And I circled for you on what you have. I didn't need to circle it for you. You know where it is. But I also indicated on some nearby counties and other counties that that I have approached. And I think almost all of those counties, are either in or are coming in. For example, Rutherford County, is now in. It's not shown yet on the state's maps. Guilford County, until recently, and still is the largest county in the state that has not yet joined. But I have the assurance from their county manager that they will be in by July 4th. And July 4th, of course, is a very important date. On that date, I will be up not speaking, but I will be up at Thomas Jefferson's home, Monticello, and Ken Burns will be speaking that day, and I am fortunate enough to be there to listen to that. The second sheet you will see there is a template for how to pass, what you need to have in a, I don't know if that's the template. And you'll see from the template that all you really need to do with that template, and it's legal at that point, is to put in the name of this county, our county, your county, where we plan for progress. I like to stay after the meeting to talk to anybody that would be willing to talk to me, and it'll get me back to Morganton a little bit later tonight, but I would welcome the chance to talk to you about whether or not you could be in before July 4th this year, and whether or not it would be possible to announce to the legislatures America's Semi-Quincentennial Committee, when they meet in May, I think on the 20th, that you're on track to be in. In fact, you could have legislators there to speak to that point. I'm sorry that I went over, but there's a lot of good things to talk about, and you all are at the center of what could be done during all of America, America 250 NC. Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you. Our next speaker is Richard Daunt.
Good evening. I'm Richard Daunt from Waxhaw. I am a member of the Waxhaw Board of Commissioners, but tonight I'm speaking personally, not for the board. On your agenda, you have a resolution to oppose North Carolina House Bill 765. I'm here to urge you to support that resolution. HB 765 will decimate the ability of local governments to represent North Carolinians on issues of land use by assigning a minimum residential density of 4 houses per acre and by opening up members of local boards to personal liability if they have a fixed opinion that is not subject to change. There goes the First Amendment. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. This bill has a long list of issues. For the sake of time, I'll leave the details to your staff presentation. Contractors and realtors are overrepresented among the sponsors of this bill, and according to Port City Daily News, the primary sponsors have received large campaign contributions from home builder and realtor associations. Representative Mark Brody, $45,900. Representative Matthew Winslow, $25,150. Representative Jeff Zenger, $31,000. Representative Carla Cunningham, $29,900. This bill is touted as an affordable housing solution, but it will be much less affordable for people to own their own homes when the property taxes have to fund infrastructure that will be required to support a mountain of residential development. If this bill goes through, North Carolina will be the shame of the nation. No other state has gone this far with restricting local governments. In a recent revision of the bill, they reversed the downzoning prohibition that was passed in December's Senate Bill 382. Talk about lipstick on a pig. That's like a mugger saying, "Don't complain about losing your money, I gave you back your wallet." Thank you for your time.
Are there any other speakers that have not signed up that are here and wish to speak tonight? Hearing none, we will now move to the next item on our agenda. Up next, we have item 25-185, recognition of the 2025 Union County or Miss Union County pageant winners. I will recognize Terry Connell Davis, Miss Union County Pageant Director, for this item.
Girls, come on around. Stand up. Want to do like they did last time. That's your baby miss. As the girls are coming around, I just wanted to say thank you to the community, city and county, for all your support. We've really enjoyed bringing back this pageant. The last time it was here was last year, then this year, but it hadn't been here for like 13 years. So these girls have done a miraculous job already this year, and they are all service above self. So just wave your hand when I call your name. Miss Union County 2025 is Shelby Simone. And Miss Teen Union County is Cooper Deason. And Miss Junior is Mackenzie Chapman. And Miss Preteen is Brooklyn Millis. And Young Miss is Elin. Here she is. And then Crosby Austin is Little Miss. And then we have first runner-up Stella Grosnick as our toddler miss. There she is. Hey, Stella. And then we have Sophie Ray Jackson as the baby miss with the beautiful shoes on. And we just want to say again, thank y'all for your support and the community support. And we have girls here that just got off work, some that just ran the track meet, but hey, they are dependable and they're here. And they're here for your service too. So if you guys need for us to be present at anything that you're having in the community, we'd love to help. Thank y'all. Thank you.
Congratulations. Our next agenda item is 25-219, Hurricane Helene recognition. I want to recognize Andrew Ansley, Emergency Management Director, for this item.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Vice Chairman Helms, Commissioners, Manager Matthews, and leadership team. This agenda item is to recognize the agencies within Union County for answering the call for help during Hurricane Helene. As you know, Hurricane Helene struck western North Carolina with devastating effects, including loss of life, property, water systems, electrical service, internet, cellular, and radio infrastructure, as well as roadways, bridges, and catastrophic flooding from 30 inches plus of rainfall in some areas. This storm was one of the largest mobilization of resources in North Carolina history. Traditionally, emergency management, the fire marshal's office, law enforcement, fire departments, and EMS have deployed into disaster areas. This storm was much more complex and destructive, requiring assistance from groups that have never deployed before. Union County answered the call in force, as you can tell. I brought an army with me tonight. At the March 2025 North Carolina Emergency Management Association Conference, Union County Emergency Management was presented with the North Carolina flag, which was flown over the Western Branch office in Hickory, North Carolina, and a certificate recognizing Union County's response in Western North Carolina. Some, if not all, of the agencies are represented tonight. These include, within Union County government, the Sheriff's Office, Water, Environmental Health, Social Services, 911 Communications, and Public Communications. Outside of county government includes Monroe Fire Department, Baker's Fire Department, Mineral Springs Fire Department, Wesley Chapel Fire Department, Stallings Police, Monroe Police, Waxhaw Police, Union EMS, and the town of Waxhaw. And these folks are here in the audience. Most all of them are in the audience. And we do have the award that we will bring up. And I think we're going to try to get everybody in for a picture.
Okay, so the rule is if you can't see me, I probably can't see you. So try to stagger in between people. Show your face. We're gonna do our best. Oh man. See if we can. I think we're gonna need another row. We like the shortest people in the. Yeah. There you go. Yeah, short people, you know who you are. Let's see, who do we got? We still got people funning. We have a little bit more space on this side. We can shift down a little bit. We got a bunch of people over here. Actually, did I see? We can get some people down in front too if you want to. Yeah, you can kneel. Can you see much better? No. I can get. It's a tough one, guys. This is a tough one. This is a lot of people. Okay. No, I mean, I can see everybody, but. Well, I can see most of you, I should say. Everyone smile. 3, 2, 1. I'm going to take a couple. Maybe if you want to shift around a little bit. All right. We'll run with it. All right.
It's now time for consideration of the agenda and consent agenda. Are there any motions regarding requested revisions or amendments to either the consent agenda or the business agenda?
Madam-
Commissioner Helms.
Please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to make the motion that we move item 25-278, that's budget amendment, Union County Sheriff's Office, to business, please, for discussion.
And Madam Chair, if the board please, I would like to offer some brief changes as well. I would like to add one item entitled County Funded Lobbyist. This would be an action item. Another item, report from Commissioner Sides on the visit to Cabarrus County Jail and Annex. I would also like to pull item 25-215, the SPRAC contract with architect and engineer, off the consent agenda to the business agenda, and item 25-265, terminate relocking and controls, off of consent to the business agenda.
Can you give me the last two numbers again? I couldn't find them.
Sure. The last two is the 25-215, the SPRAC contract, architect and engineers for design and construction of the SPRAC, and 25-265, terminate the relocking and controls item.
Commissioner Helms.
Madam Chair, thank you. So it appears as though we've got two different motions here, so I made that motion for item 25278. I think we should vote on these separately
Okay,
if the chair's
yeah.
in agreement.
Okay, I have a motion to pull 25-278, a budget amendment. All those in favor of moving that to business, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we have a request to pull 25-265, the locking mechanisms, off of consent to business. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 25-215, request to pull that off of consent and bring that to business. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And then you had some other requests.
I'd requested two items be added. First, to the business agenda. Item number one is county-funded lobbyist. This would be an action item. Item two was report from Commissioner Sides on visit to the Cabarrus County Jail and Annex. That is not an action item. That is for information only.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Helms.
I'll be opposed to the motion to add items to our agenda tonight for a couple of different reasons. First of all, we are down a member tonight, as Commissioner Christina Helms could not be here. But second of all, this board has got certain rules and procedures. And according to our rules and procedures, rule number 9, subsection C, states the following, that the board is discouraged from adding items to the agenda the night of the meeting. However, the board may, by majority vote, add an item not on the agenda. So to me, what this states is that this action is possible for things that are time is of the essence type items. I would recommend that Commissioner Sides consider putting these items, on the agenda through the process through our board rules and procedures, where it allows for these items to be added a week in advance. Because ultimately, these are things that this board has to prepare for. Is things that we need more information on before we can vote from an educated standpoint. And then the other thing is I believe that this does a disservice to the people that we serve, because other folks may be interested in being a part of that discussion and being here at our meetings, and ultimately they can't be if we add this stuff on last minute. So I'll be opposed to the additions.
Okay.
I would just add in response, I'll be glad to remove the action item, which is the county-funded lobbyist. But the other item is purely information from my visit to the Cabarrus County Jail. And this information, I believe, is very relevant to our own jail issue and a potential opportunity to follow the path that Cabarrus used very successfully some 20 years ago. So this is only an information item. It would not require a vote or action. And I just wanted to frankly give you this report while it's still fresh in my mind. But I'll lend it to the majority if you decide not to, and reschedule it for next time.
Commissioner Sides, the packet went out on Wednesday, and I regret that we did not know you were taking that field trip. And it's kind of a surprise to me to add that now. And I do think it's unfortunate that one of our commissioners is not here tonight to receive the information. And staff has not had an opportunity, to prepare for this either. So I'm going to call a vote. Everyone in favor of adding the funding?
You don't have to vote. I'll rescind my request, and I'll make it to the leadership in a timely fashion so that it can be discussed at the next meeting. But I'll withdraw these two actions.
Okay. And just for future reference, we, the chair and the vice chair meet with staff on late Monday afternoons. And that would be a great time to submit to the chair and the vice chair anything you would like to have on the agenda so that we can work with staff to put it on the agenda. And then, of course, when Ms. Lynn sends out the packet on Wednesday, if there's anything that anyone would like to add or remove or move from consent to business, between Wednesday and the weekend would be a great time to work with the chair and the vice chair to change the agenda.
Acknowledged.
Okay. So we do have an amended agenda with 3 items that have been pulled from consent. Item 25-265 regarding locking mechanisms, 25-215 for architectural information on page 10, 25-278, a budget amendment change has been pulled from consent and moved to the business agenda. All those in favor of the amended agenda say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Okay, that brings us to the business agenda.
Madam,
Yes.
I think you probably still do need to take action on approving the consent agenda, even though it's been modified. And I'll defer to Jason if I'm
Okay.
incorrect.
I think the previous motions amended the agenda, moved it around a bit, and then the final action would be to approve the newly revised consent agenda specifically, as opposed to the whole amendment as it got rearranged. We had a lot going on there.
Madam Chair, I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll make the motion that we approve the consent agenda as amended.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. 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 Okay. Okay, we're going to start with what we were planning to do on business first, and that is 25-225. On the business agenda, the first item for Hurricane Helene Waterway debris removal update. I want to recognize Andrew Ansley, Emergency Management Director, concerning this item.
Good afternoon again. You should have a copy of these slides at your desk. So tonight is just to provide you just an update on some storm debris removal that's going on throughout the county. As you know, Hurricane Helene, the major disaster declaration, Union County was added to that a little bit late after the original counties of western North Carolina were a part of that, roughly October of '24 for us. For any given area, there's an approval process that takes place between FEMA, the Army Corps of Engineers, Department of Environmental Quality, Wildlife Resources, Federal Historic Preservation, for temporary debris and disposal sites. A right of entry agreement has to take place in order for these debris contractors to work on property. So they engage HOAs, private landowners, and municipalities during this process. And this is just an example. This is 12 Mile Creek outside of a neighborhood in Waxhaw. And you can see the debris that's collected not only from Helene, but likely from Florence all the way back to 2018 and tropical storms in between there. So a little bit about this program. FEMA tasked the Army Corps for coordinating the removal of this debris if it poses a threat to immediate life and safety, which in our case is flooding. We're trying to reduce or eliminate flooding in a lot of areas. The projects have to be completed by June 1st, which is right around the corner. And the Army Corps determines what qualifies under this program for removal. There's no cost to the residents, businesses, or municipalities. So last Thursday, we're in daily contact with the debris contractors and/or the Corps. I made a request last Thursday for an extension because the amount of debris that's in the county, they're not going to get done before June 1st. So there's an army of vehicles, these dump trucks. You've probably seen up and down the roads throughout the county. There's probably 50 or more of these vehicles. So the way this works, Union County Emergency Management made the request to North Carolina. who handed it off to FEMA. FEMA handed it off to Army Corps, and they oversee debris contractors that are from all over the country. They're here. Michigan, Louisiana, Utah, Arkansas, Alabama, they're everywhere, all over the county working. So here's an example of the good work they're doing. This is Waxhaw Indian Trail right near Shannon Road. And as you know, Shannon Road has a lot of flooding. This is what the view from the bridge looked like before, and this is what it looks like now. So we give them the original points, which roughly were about 87 to get them started. Once they get in that area, they will walk by ground, they will fly drones, and they will go north, south, east, or west of that point and determine debris and clean it as they go. Meeting certain criteria, which really there's not a lot that disqualifies it. This is by far the most comprehensive stream clean out that has ever happened in this county. So the locations, and we get the information about where debris is from our knowledge from where it's flooded. We've tracked flooded roads since Hurricane Florence. We get it from neighborhoods, we get it from individuals, we get it from municipalities, and we get it from the debris contractors that have been surveying the county continuously. Not every location will qualify, but all of them have qualified so far. So they began their work March 29th in the county. A little bit of statistics, and this is as of last Friday. They have removed 150,000 cubic yards of debris so far. They have 3 what they call debris management sites. One of those is in Waxhaw on Highway 75. One is on Jack Davis just off Stack, and then a very visible one is up 601 North, just past Sykes Mill on the right as you're going out of town. There are roughly 25 crews operating with 28 hauling vehicles that bring the debris. All the debris is mulched, and will, starting tomorrow, all of it will start being hauled to a farm off of Morgan Mill Road. Right now, there's 150 sites been identified. Roughly 73 of those have been approved for work. The balance of those are in some various state of approval. This vehicle that you see in this picture, this is on the sewer right-of-way behind the 12 Mile Creek plant in Waxhaw. This is one of the vehicles that they use to remove timber out of the waterway and load it on their trailer and drive it to the site. They have a variety of equipment that they use for this purpose. In some counties, not ours, they even have a barge or two that gets on lakes and removes debris from the water. This is an example of Waxhaw site. And you can see the amount of debris that has been pulled. And this site pulls debris from pretty much the Waxhaw, Wesley Chapel, Mineral Springs, Sandy Ridge, Cane Creek Park. We had a lot of debris moved out of Cane Creek Park. The truck at the bottom there, you can see is they bring it in, offload it themselves, and then go back out. They work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's a close-up view. You don't realize how much debris is in the waterways in this county until these folks get out and start pulling it. The blue circle is a monitoring station. So they have the Army Corps that monitors the load. So when the truck comes in, they make notation of the amount of debris in the trailer. They offload it, and then the truck goes back by to ensure it's empty, and then they go back and get another load. The red circle is one of the largest track hoes that they make, and you can see the difference between the debris and the size of that track hoe. There's a lot of debris there. The bottom right-hand corner, this is the mulching machine that's on 601 North. Like I said, it's a continuous operation, 12 hours a day. As debris comes in, they're processing it into mulch and then hauling it to this farm on Morgan Mill Road. And that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Well, thank you for being here tonight. I've actually gotten a lot of phone calls about the creeks and streams being cleaned up. Some of the owners were a little bit confused, didn't know what was going on, but they were very happy when they were informed the work that was being done. I did receive a call a couple of weeks ago, so from the mayor of Unionville, Randy Balcom. One of the streams actually flows through some of his property, and he had the opportunity to meet the company that was contracted. I believe they were from Maine, doing some of the work, and he was extremely pleased with the cleanup work this particular contractor was doing. So I'm happy to hear tonight that you have applied for an extension. The conversation that he had with the main contractor was that in order to do this cleanup properly, was that they would not be done by June, just like you said in your presentation. And they had communicated to him that they needed like 8 to 10 more weeks, possibly an August deadline. When you applied for an extension, what did you request?
I didn't request a timeline initially.
Okay.
I just see if they would entertain it. And I had a call with FEMA in the Corps today. Nobody's committed to anything, but they realize that there's still areas in the county we hadn't even touched. And with the 150 sites we have, only half of them being approved, there is a backlog in their approval process.
Right.
So, and I too get phone calls. I get probably 3 to 5 a day from citizens. And all of it is dispelling it being a scam.
Right.
And if you think about a truck pulling up in your driveway with Michigan tags and says, here, sign this form, I'm representing FEMA, they're very skeptical about that. But once you walk them through all of that, they all have the right to deny entry if they want to. Some have, the vast majority of them have not. They all realize and have been looking forward for this opportunity, as well as I have, for years, that this bucket of money has never existed before.
Right.
So we are maximizing this every minute of the day. I devote 75% of my week to this now, because it's constant phone calls and collaboration. There's a 1 or 2 star general with the Army that is the ultimate person. He will be coming here and inspecting the site, but we hope that they'll do the extension on this, because there's at least 6 months or more that they need to do.
Okay, wow. That's a lot longer than August.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
well, I would greatly appreciate if you stay in touch with us, let the commissioners know, or Brian Matthews know where this goes with your request, because I know, out in the Unionville area, and I'm sure in Wesley Chapel, Waxhaw, we saw the pictures. I've gotten calls, is it Richardson?
Correct. Yep.
I've got Richardson, Chinkapin, and then Crooked Creek.
Right.
I've gotten phone calls. So if you could please keep us updated, and
will.
if there's anything we can do to assist with your request.
We might do that if
Yep.
we need to.
And then Congressman Mark Harris, you could put in a request with his office as
Okay.
well.
So I
Since-
did get calls today that areas that usually flood, this weekend's rain, didn't have any flooding.
Oh, wow.
So it's paying off.
Okay.
So,
Well, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
I think we do have another question.
okay,
Just trying to answer some of the phone calls that I've had.
sure.
So you are only cleaning out the bed of the stream, correct? You're
No,
not-
sir. They will do the waterway, and then they will do out 30 or 40 feet from that waterway.
30
So,
or 40
so
feet?
debris that floats in land and settles on land as the water recedes, they're grabbing that all the way to the waterway.
But not taking out any live vegetation, you're only taking out what has.
There are
fallen.
some trees and areas that they do have to cut to get the machinery in there, but that is something that I encourage the property owners, as you have those conversations, if there's areas you don't want them in or don't want to cut, you need to let them know that. So all those agreements between the contractors and the private landowners is between those two. The county's not involved in that part of it. But I do have those phone calls too, that, hey, I don't want them cutting my walnut tree down and that kind of thing. And, that's just something for them, that they need to make sure these debris guys know that when they're in there doing that work.
Okay, well, we're not clearing the floodplains, we're not
No.
clearing
No.
All right.
No,
We're
it's not, there's not land, now, there is land clearing going on, it's not from this purpose. There's some other land clearing going on unrelated to this, especially around the Waxhaw area. But no, they're not clear cutting people's
This is
lots.
strictly for flood control.
Correct. Correct.
Nothing pertaining to the greenway trying to come through, nothing
No,
pertaining
no.
to sewer.
No,
You
sir.
know, I've had a lot of questions, you know.
I get them too, yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Next on our agenda is 25-245, resolution to oppose House Bill 765. I want to recognize County Manager Brian Matthews regarding this item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Previously, we were made aware of a bill that had been introduced in the House, and I believe there's a companion bill in the Senate, different number. But the bill is really an effort, in our opinion, to take away local government control, especially when it comes to planning and development, and the decisions made at the local level. And several of our board members expressed concern with it, and they wanted to have a discussion here about that, potentially adopt a resolution in opposition to it. And I can tell you that this is a statewide issue. This is not just unique to North Carolina, to Union County. It is statewide. There are a number of, I would say, draft resolutions that are out there from different organizations opposing this. Just to give you a little flavor for some of the issues we see with this, it requires minimum densities of at least 4 units per acre. Again, that is a local decision. That's not a state decision, but this would make it a statewide requirement that no less than 4 units per acre. It eliminates design requirements for streets and how your streets could actually be designed to be better maintained. It eliminates public input. So right now we have the means for when a development is going through a rezoning process, the public is allowed to speak, make comments about that. The board takes that information into consideration. This would take that away from the public. They would not be allowed to actually comment, and decision would basically be taken out of the board's hands. And it also requires that the process is expedited. Once an application is submitted, there's a very quick time frame, and if the local government doesn't meet that time frame, the application is deemed automatically approved. And so that's just a small list of some of the issues with this legislation. This is something we've seen in the past. This has been common that we've seen these efforts to erode local government control. So I did want to just tee that up a little bit so then the board could have some discussion and make a decision on where you wanted to move from that. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Helms?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to bring out a few provisions of this bill that will directly affect Union County. So this bill obviously addresses so many things, and to County Manager Matthews' point, that's exactly what it does, is it takes away local development and planning authority from not only Union County, but every county and municipality in the state. So the first thing that it tries to tackle that really stood out to me that would negatively affect our county is the topic of density. And what our state legislature and the sponsors of this bill have done is they've made changes to a section called 160D-703. So that's General Statute 160D-703 in regards to zoning districts. And this is on page 11 of the bill, or at least the first version of the bill. And what it does is it's got point number 2 here. In a county with a population between 50,000 and 274,999, the siting of no fewer than 5 dwelling units per acre. Now, Union County is going to fall under that category with our population. And under this provision, longstanding zonings of R40 or 1 house per acre would essentially be no more. In addition, this is going to require our county to allow 5 houses per acre by right building, which means that nothing's going to come to this board. We're not going to be conditionally rezoning by right building. This would create, obviously, widespread high-density residential development and strip the authority of this board to govern zoning. So what effect does this have on farmland and agriculture in our county? How does this affect the critical services that our county offers? We've talked about this time and time again, that there's a cost to serve. There's a cost to serve the residents of this county with services, such as EMS, fire, deputies. And probably the most concerning aspect of this would be schools. And, we're seeing this currently in our budget cycle that, the voters of Union County just passed a bond that, I would argue that we probably need, but is to complete the Forest Hills cluster, and it also includes design work for Parkwood High School. And we're witnessing the effect of that as we develop our current budget. So if this bill passes, if HB 765 passes, how many more schools will Union County need? And more importantly, what's that going to cost our taxpayers? In my opinion, this provision is a direct attack on the fabric and the character of our county. There's other provisions in there as well. There's other alterations for such as shared jurisdictions. And the language that's been included in this bill, it states the following. It says the local government has the ability to provide public water and sewer services shall have, now that's shall, that's not should, could, would, maybe, is shall, have planning and development regulation jurisdiction over the entire parcel. Now, we see this all the time, where we have a resident who's applied for, water services, and perhaps the county doesn't have, any utility lines in that area. And so the city of Monroe may pick up that customer. Because, that's the, making sure that we didn't have a fire alarm or something there. But that's commonplace, and we do that because, well, obviously people need water or they need sewer services. But, how does this affect, what we do as far as planning and zoning is concerned? If that's the case, if this goes into effect, this probably creates one of the most confusing situations regarding planning and development I've ever seen. One of the more interesting aspects of this bill is it goes into voting and conflicts of interest. And I'll touch on this more here in a few minutes, but what it includes language in General Statute 160D-109 where it strikes old language and it adds in, new language here. And some of this new language includes the following. It says, number 3, the member has a fixed opinion prior to the hearing on the matter that is not susceptible to change. And then number 4, the member has an undisclosed ex parte communication about the matter. So how does this affect the governing board, and their ability to vote? Does the addition of point 3 and 4 prohibit a board member who's previously made statements such as, hey, I don't support high-density residential, from voting? Certainly seems that way. How do candidates for local office even campaign? How do voters know where their elected officials and future candidates stand on the issues that the county faces? I suppose that the writers of this bill feel that we won't need to vote on any land use matters if this passes. One of the more egregious actions of this bill is that in 160D-108.1 under vested rights, it says, or it actually strikes language regarding zoning action, and it puts this under a more widespread umbrella called land development regulation. And I'm certainly not an attorney like Mr. K is up here, but this was a little bit alarming to me because this board has recently made changes in regards to land development and subdivision ordinances. And to me, I'm of the opinion that this is a direct assault on our county's action previously in this year where we started requiring a 30% open space requirement for major subdivisions. The last point that I'll make on this is this. Under 162A-901, water, sewer, and sewer plants. That is one of the most critical things that this board does, is manage the utilities. In 162A-901, amendments to this section include the following. It says, unless the public system does not have capacity to serve the proposed development or is under a moratorium precluding expansion imposed by General Statute 160D-107 or by a state agency, a public system shall reserve necessary capacity for proposed development for 24 months from the date of the completed application for service commitment. If the public system this is the most crucial part, and this would affect every single ratepayer in this county. If the public system lacks sufficient capacity to serve a proposed development, the public system shall, within 90 days of notice of reservation denial to the applicant, prepare a plan for expansion of the public system capacity. The plan shall include the estimated timeline, funding sources, and steps necessary to implement the plan to expand the public system capacity. During my time on this board, since I was elected in 2022, and not long after I was elected, and also Commissioner Merrill was elected, Commissioner Stoney Rushing, Commissioner Merrill, and myself voted for a policy that would require a bond referendum for any new sewer plant built in this county. This policy puts the decision of future growth in the hands of the voters and not 5 commissioners. This provision of this bill undoes that policy and takes that right away from you, the public. Currently, Union County cannot reserve sewer capacity for certain types of development because it is viewed by state law as discriminatory. Since I've been on this board, Union County has repeatedly asked our state delegation for local legislation to allow us the ability to reserve sewer capacity for commercial and industrial development. Why? Because single-family homes can be built so much faster than commercial and other projects that our county desperately needs. This is exactly why we're at 90% residential currently. The addition of this language will also force the county and ultimately the ratepayer to fund sewer plant after sewer plant after sewer plant to accommodate residential development. In addition, can funding even be acquired in that time frame? It'd probably be a question for Beverly, but I would think that that's probably going to be a difficult task. How much does the state want us to charge for utility rates? You know, when we were discussing Site B, I mean, the cost of Site B and the effect on our utility rates was astronomical. And it was astronomical not for 2 years, but till the end of time. You know, we're not currently on a sustainable trajectory with 90% residential. And this provision would leave us with nothing, no capacity for commercial, industrial, retail, or anything else that we need. Residential construction would ultimately be subsidized by all of the ratepayers for the profit of the developer. And what's your reward going to be for paying higher water rates and sewer rates? Well, you won't get better water. Your toilets are not going to flush better. Instead, you're going to get to sit in more traffic every single day on roads that are in need of repair because NCDOT can't fund the improvements. There's other things that this bill covers. It covers package plants. It opens the doors for package plants to be utilized like crazy in the state. It also eliminates certain numbers of parking spaces for businesses. It limits local government's ability to regulate sidewalks, borders, interior roads, and even driveways. But most importantly, and this is what really struck a nerve with me personally, it removes the ability of citizens to petition local government on land use decisions. So what is HB 765? Well, I mean, it's a home builder's bill is what it is. It's a home builder's bill that destroys local government authority over zoning, density, and utilities and subsidizes residential development on the backs of the ratepayers and the taxpayers. This bill is a developer's dream come true that sells out our county and our state for greed. Don't believe me? Let's look at the primary sponsors of HB 765 and also the subsequent secondary sponsors and what their occupation is according to the North Carolina General Assembly's website. It's not something that I made up. You can find this. This is public information on the North Carolina General Assembly's website. The 4 primary sponsors: Jeff Zinger, Forsyth County. He's a general contractor and developer. Union County's own Mark Brody. He is listed on the website as a contractor. Matthew Winslow, he represents Franklin and Vance County. He's listed as a home builder. The 4th is Carla Cunningham from Mecklenburg. She's a registered nurse. Other sponsors. Well, we've got Jay Adams from Catawba. He's a commercial real estate broker. We've got Jerry Branson from Guilford. He owns Stout Trucking that also, helps out with development. We've got Aisha Dew from Mecklenburg. She's a consultant. We've got Chris Humphrey from Allstate Insurance Agent, or he's an Allstate Insurance Agent. He represents Green, Jones, and Lenore. We've got Jake Johnson from Henderson, McDowell, and Polk in Rutherford. He's a real estate agent. We've got grant writers in here. We've got Dante Pittman from Nash and Wilson County. We've got Larry W. Potts from Davidson. He's a real estate investor and a building contractor. We also have Charles Smith from Cumberland. He's an attorney. And then we've got Steve Tyson from Craven. He's a realtor and a general contractor. We've got Shelley Willingham from Birdie and Edgecombe and Martin, and he's a real estate consultant. So you do the math. There are 21 counting primary and secondary sponsors of this bill, and at least 2/3 of those sponsors have direct ties to real estate and development. Direct ties. Now, I'm sure that some of the sponsors and proponents will argue that this bill is intended to address an affordable housing crisis. They'll point to a housing gap based on a study by the North Carolina Chamber and state associations representing home builders and real estate agents. So that's who commissioned the study. The study, in my opinion, this study is truly an example of a fox in the hen house type situation, where the ones that will benefit the most get the results that they need. However, keep in mind that the market controls home prices and not state legislation. There is nothing in this bill that prevents or caps home values and prices. In fact, this bill's density requirements alone will make it more profitable than ever to be a builder in North Carolina, all under the guise of affordable housing. But it's not just HB 765 that we got to watch out for. There's another one out there in the Senate. It's called SB 688. It's a similar bill that's making its way through the process currently, and there's others. This board has stood strong in our promise for managed, responsible growth, and at every turn, we have been met with state legislation such as this to usurp local control in favor of lobbyist groups, campaign funding, and the almighty dollar. These bills, 765 and SB 688, are a direct attack on the will of the people in Union County who elected us to do just that. In discussions with our state representatives today, in fact, I've been told that there's going to be a new update to this bill that will exclude Union County and potentially restore the downzoning authority that the state took away from us in SB 382. However, even if this bill only affects a small number of counties, because what they're talking about is the 6th largest, we're currently number 8, I believe, in the state. I still remain in opposition of this because it removes local authority. It moves the needle away from the people. Furthermore, if this becomes law, even in a limited scope, I believe that this still poses a threat to the people of Union County. As a commissioner and a citizen of this county, I'm going to continue to oppose legislation such as this with every means that I have. And I encourage all of our residents to do the same. I want to thank all the residents who have reached out to your state representatives on this. You know, it's probably due to your efforts that we're seeing the revisions that were currently being promised. But I would continue to encourage each and every one of you out there, please reach out to your state delegation, reach out to your General Assembly members, reach out to your state senators, reach out to the sponsors on this bill, and let them know that, you know what, Raleigh doesn't know what's best for Union County. These decisions should be left local. So I'll be in support of the resolution tonight. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Helms. I just want to make it very clear that, this bill obviously is a statewide bill. It affects all 100 counties, but it has certainly hit the municipalities in Union County pretty hard. We've had several towns in Union County that have already approved a resolution to oppose this bill. I believe Unionville has opposed with a resolution. Indian Trail. Anyone else you can think of?
I know that several are considering it, and some of them are going to be discussing this tomorrow.
So some of the towns have already had meetings and passed their resolution to oppose this, with more meetings to come. So the list is growing. So this is not a county commissioner issue. This, affects our local municipalities and the towns that have elected their mayors and their town council or their town commissioners. This has usurped their power too. So the people that you have elected to represent where you live, not just at the county level, but is taking decisions away from them as well. So I think it's very important to know that a lot of our Union County municipalities have either already approved the resolution, or they will be in the next week or two to oppose this. I find it very interesting that it has a stipulation in there that you can get anything done in 90 days when it comes to water and sewer, because when the Site B was on our plate a couple of years ago when we first joined the board, my first question when I saw, House Bill 765 was, okay, well, I learned it takes 10 to 15 years to build a sewer plant. So how does that fit in a 90-day time frame? And I think when we were looking at Site B, we were looking in excess of, $200 million to start this plant, then another $150 million to pump it from A to B or B to A and get it back. And but then beyond that, are they telling the state that we no longer need DEQ? Because DEQ is the application process to determine if you can even have a new sewer plant, and they tell you what you can permit it for. And are they going to get rid of the EPA, and there's no longer going to be an environmental study because they're saying it has to be done in 90 days? So I think there are a lot of problems with this House bill, and they're taking more away from the 100 counties. They're taking decisions away from all of the towns across North Carolina. But apparently they have no respect for DEQ or an environmental study. We need to build houses, so just get it done. But I don't know how we're going to how we would fund an unfunded mandate, or where are we going to get this $350 million from to begin a 10 to 15 year project to build a new sewer plant so they can build these new homes. So the entire thing just does not make a lot of sense to me. And I would love to know where DEQ and the EPA, where they all stand on this, and if all of that's just going to be thrown out the window to build new homes. But we're in a situation, even with our schools. The whole reason I'm even here today is because of the massive redistricting back in 2013, when almost 6,000 students were kicked out of their neighborhood home or their neighborhood schools and sent to like the third or fourth closest school from their home. and then created like a $2 or $3 million deficit in bus transportation, because now all of a sudden the buses were hauling these kids farther away from their home. And then our rating on our bus transportation dropped in the state, so we lost more funding on that. There was no sibling policy, so brothers and sisters and poor moms and dads were having to drop their, 3 kids or 5 kids off at 3 different schools because, they couldn't stay together any longer. Brothers and sisters, brothers and brothers could no longer play ball together. And so, so I think about redistricting and, what's that going to do? And where are we going to get the hundreds of millions of dollars to build new elementary schools, land, middle schools, high schools? It just really boggles my mind, and I'm extremely disappointed that we have a representative from Union County that would sponsor this bill and be the spokesperson for Union County up in Raleigh. So it's really a travesty, and I will be supporting this resolution. Are there any other comments? Yes.
I'd like to add, well, not add to the resolution, but I'd like to add, if the resolution passes, which I believe it will, I would ask the manager, signed by leadership if necessary, to formally request our full legislative delegation to arrange an in-person, on-the-record official meeting to explain their position on this legislation. Understanding that the legislature is in session, we will make all possible accommodations. I don't care if we got to meet on a Saturday afternoon. But I feel like if they are going to support such ridiculous legislation as this, then they need to have the stones to come in person and tell us why in front of the cameras. And so I would make this an addition to request if this resolution does pass. And I can say this. I can say this. If any member of our delegation votes for this legislation, I will do everything in my power to see there is a candidate to oppose that legislator in the next primary election.
Any other comments, questions? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I really need to give credit to you for couple of the figures I'm going to bring forth. The growth in our area has been tremendous. And the way it stands right now, get my notes here, North Carolina is number 2 in the nation of loss of farmland. Union County is number 13 among the counties in the nation loss of farmland. That's to me, that's very troubling. We have farmers that are out there bidding, fighting, trying to get land, trying to make a living. So that sets up issues. And we also have this stubborn fact that we've been told that a healthy county will be 65% residential, 35% commercial, industrial, retail. We're currently, today, 90% residential. So what will HB 765 do to that number, do to that percentage? In my opinion, it would blow it off the charts. So in my opinion, these decisions on zoning need to be made as close to the people as possible. The people who are going to be affected, the local boards need to be making this decision. These decisions do not need to come from the state level. I had a conversation with the representative today. These decisions do not need to be coming from the state level. They need to be taken care of at home, close to the people. I believe in small government. So, and I live, we mentioned Representative Brody of District 55. I live in that district. It is primarily rural, agricultural, and it's people who I know best, and their main concern, their main conversation when they talk to me, anything political, is, Clancy, the housing is going crazy. we're having to sit at intersections a long time. We're having to try to jet out, whenever we get a chance to pull out from stop signs. Something needs to be done. We need to pump the brakes. And I fully agree with that. So I will be 100% in support of this resolution to oppose HB 765, and especially in its current form, and even in the form when it is revised, where it affects only the 6 counties, because those people need to be able to take care of things at home just as we do. So that's all I have.
Thank you. I do want to say that Representative Dean Arp did call me today and others today, and he was working very hard in Raleigh to have Union County excluded from this. I don't know if he's going to be successful or unsuccessful, but I know that he's being pressured really hard to get behind this bill. But what he told me today, and I believe others, is Union County would have to be removed from this bill in order for him to support it. So I think it's going to go back in committee. There are going to be some other changes, but I would encourage everyone to be following House Bill 765 and to see who votes for it. We've had comments. Yes.
Is anyone aware of any comments by our governor, either in support or against this legislation? Has he stated that if this legislation falls through, he would veto it, or does he support it?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Helms.
Commissioner Size, it's my understanding that our governor is in support of House Bill 765. So I can't point to a news article or a source, but I have heard that Governor Stein would support this action.
In its present form.
Correct.
And that would make sense if they're saying it's for affordable housing and high density. That would make sense that he would support it. Do we have a motion? Have you made a formal motion?
I will.
Okay.
We do not currently have a motion, but I will make that motion to adopt the resolution in opposition to provisions of House Bill 765 that eliminate important current rights of local citizens to petition their local government regarding community issues.
Okay, we've talked plenty. All those in favor of the resolution, say aye. 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 Thank you, everyone. Okay, next is item 25-252, appointments to boards and committees. There are 2 boards with vacancies for consideration this evening. These vacancies have been advertised in accordance with board rules and procedures. Applications have been received, and information regarding the vacant positions can be found in the background provided for this item. First is the Home and Community Care Block Grant Advisory Committee. I will now entertain a motion for a nomination to this committee. Commissioner Helms.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll make the motion that we appoint Kathleen Demansky to the Home and Community Care Block Grant Advisory Committee.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The second board with vacancies for consideration this evening is the Consolidated Human Services Board. There are 7 total vacancies on this board. I will now entertain a motion for nominations to this board. Commissioner Helms.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I believe that we've got 2 folks that we can appoint tonight. So we've got, I'll make the motion that we appoint Eric J. Claflin to fill the vacant community-based organization representative position. And then also, and if we need to separate these, then we can.
We can do it together.
Okay. I also make the motion then to appoint Matthew Childs to fill the vacant psychologist position on that board.
Okay, all those in favor of those 2 appointment recommendations, say aye. 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 Okay, very good. Okay, that brings us back to the 3 items that we moved from consent to business. And Commissioner Sides, I'm going to start with 25-265, the locking mechanisms.
Oh, I will be brief in my questions. If the county manager could give us a little background on the reasoning behind the addition here to delete that project?
Certainly. So, part of the challenge with doing a wholesale renovations to those cells is relocating the inmates in order to actually accommodate that. So you can't relocate 1 or 2 inmates at a time. You actually have to do a block at a time. A block is typically somewhere between 45 and 50, and there's more than that. The sheriff's, can certainly correct me on my numbers, but it's a larger number. And we don't have the space to relocate those individuals, those inmates. And we're finding it difficult to find areas where we could potentially contract with another county to put those inmates, mainly because they don't have the staffing to be able to handle that many at one time. Understanding that we just can't make it work logistically. It's not that it's not a need, it's just that we can't accommodate it. So we're going to just do the best we can, patch it up as best we can, and work the system the way it is.
Could you, along these same lines, could you address, because there was some action on a potential contract with Cabarrus County's Sheriff's Department to utilize their current vacant annex, which has a total of 96 units. Could you address why that contract opportunity is where it stands, and if not feasible, why? If you could you address that?
Sure, and again, I'll invite the sheriff and his staff to comment if I say anything that's not correct. My understanding is the sheriff's office did reach out to Cabarrus County. We already do send a small number of inmates there, 7 to 12 or so, that we do, and we pay for those inmates to be there. Our staff did approach the Cabarrus County folks, ask if that was possible. Their response was they did not have the staffing level to be able to handle that many inmates. It would require new detention officers. What I understand the concern is that it would not be feasible for Cabarrus County to hire temporary detention officers. It's already difficult enough to hire detention officers full-time. Temporary would be even more of a challenge, which would likely mean that we would have to hire detention officers to then turn around and send to Cabarrus County. And that's not necessarily, good for us on our end at this
Certainly
point.
not sustainable.
No, and so I think that what basically at this point in time, the contract is really at a standstill or an impasse because we just can't make it work at this point.
I think this is an issue that this board is going to have to address. We have engaged a consultant to give us figures, which I think are going to be some real sticker shock. But this issue is not going away. Having personally had the opportunity to visit inside the jail, I can tell my colleagues that there are currently, and I won't say the number and I certainly won't say the location, but there are cells in our jail that can be popped open with a pocket comb. Now, I don't have to tell you that's not exactly what jail cells are for. So we have a jail that is deteriorating. And right down the road, or up the road in Cabarrus County, they have an annex that's sitting empty. Apparently because detention officers do not grow on trees. As you can imagine, there is a certain kind of person that is willing to do that kind of work, of which I myself never considered, frankly. But we are going to, as with many other issues, we are going to be confronting the needs of law enforcement in hiring sufficient officers, not just detention officers, but also patrol officers, to maintain the level of public safety that our citizens have come to enjoy. We, not so long ago, we remember a neighborhood up in Weddington was a serious break-in, turned out to be part of a gang. Those are not going away. Charlotte is a major human trafficking hub. That is not going away. Fentanyl, other drugs brought in from where, who knows where, are not going away. So the issue of resources needed by law enforcement, as well as infrastructure such as repairs or major changes or upgrades or replacement of our jail, is an issue that is going to be front and center very soon. And serious decisions will need to be made, and serious investments will be required. And it is an issue of public safety, which I'm sure everyone on this board can agree is of our highest concern. So I will look for opportunities, brainstorming with staff or what have you, that we can address this potential opportunity with space. We know where the space is. It's up in Cabarrus County. The problem is, like you mentioned, we can't just send some of our guests up there unsupervised, and Cabarrus County has their hands full already. So, and you can't go to a temp service and hire detention officers to work a 6-month or whatever schedule. So this is going to take some serious work to address this, but addressed it must be. So if appropriate, unfortunately, I will offer the motion to follow up on this and hopefully only temporarily put a hold or cancellation of this project.
Commissioner Helms.
Madam Chair, I was just going to ask Commissioner Sides, could you clarify the motion here? Are you making the motion to approve this item?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Reluctantly and unfortunately, due to circumstances at least temporarily beyond our control, it appears we can't just leave these contractors in a holding pattern. We have to give them some kind of indication, and it's obviously apparently it can't be go right now.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, question to staff then, with this item, if we terminate the contract that we have been working on for quite some time with this, we're going to realize some sort of credit, correct? Do we have any idea about the monetary value of that credit at this point? It may be early in the stages here, but just wanted to get an idea.
Chris, do you have an idea how much that would be?
Yeah, I'll lead the board with a good note on the project, in that they did accomplish some work at the Judicial Center that was much needed, and so it did correct some outstanding issues there. So there has been, we've paid completed work to date, and they have stored materials that we're going to negotiate whether it can be returned and see a significant return on that or not, or it becomes ours and we keep it, and it's mostly locks. And so we would have locks in hand or on hand to do any repairs that are absolutely needed. But I would estimate that it's a total contract of about $3 million, and I think $2 million is what we would probably realize, somewhere in that range. We haven't finished any of the negotiations yet, though.
Gotcha. Thank you, Chris.
Okay, so we have a motion to authorize the county manager to terminate the agreement if deemed in the best interest of the county. That's your motion.
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, the next item, Commissioner Sides, was 25-215. That was a contract for architectural and engineering services for South Piedmont Regional Autopsy Center.
I, again, had a few questions, and it's very helpful to me to learn about the process in undertaking a project such as this, which I'm glad to see is moving along. Could you help me with the process of selection of the design and contract and build at risk firm, how that's, what the criteria are? And then I understand it was narrowed down to a top three. What criteria you use to go from there, and go over the timelines again for the project?
Yeah, I don't have the exact criteria, but I can kind of
General,
summarize
it's
it.
fine.
So the process is an RFQ goes out, of course, open to anybody and everybody. Those submissions are received by our procurement department. We have an evaluation committee that's assigned to each one of these projects. The evaluation committee in this case was myself, Clayton Voynier, and the Union County project manager. They are, all those proposals are evaluated and scored, and criteria are specialized experience, experience in similar projects, their history with any financial issues and or litigation, and just the quality of the submission are some of the kind of major criteria that you look at. And so all the firms are scored, and we make decisions based on how close the scoring is, and usually with guidance from procurement on how many that we bring in or we shortlist and we bring in for interviews. At the interview, and then in this case we interviewed 3, I think. Was it 4? I think it was 4 in this case.
Okay.
Let me verify that. Yeah, 4 firms were shortlisted because they were really close scores. There wasn't really a separation between 3 and 4. So we interviewed 4. The committee scores based on some of those similar criteria, and we get a little more information about specialization. In this case, specialization is very important on this project. So again, they're scored, and the highest score, we start negotiations. If negotiations are successful, then we go with that firm. If not, then we move to number 2.
Is a timeline, in other words, their assurances of a more prompt timeline of completion, one of the criteria you're looking at?
Staffing resources are a part of the equation. Okay. We don't, a schedule can be somewhat considered a part of product. So they're not allowed to give any product, whether that's design, schedules, cost estimates, any of those things can't be part of their submission in their request for qualification. So presenting a schedule could be considered product.
You probably don't have this readily at hand, and I don't suppose there are a whole lot of autopsy centers built in the state, so it's going to be pretty hard to get somebody, I would think, that's actually built one, but specialized knowledge as far as any kind of medical facility or lab or toxicology lab or anything like that. Do you recall off the top of your head what the particular experience of the winning candidate was from a experience in this area was?
Okay, so anytime you're selecting a designer, you usually have a team. Usually the architect of record, which is going to be CPL in this case, they actually have autopsy experience, autopsy center experience.
Bingo.
I can't remember how many it was. Clayton, do you recall how many? I think there were a couple in North Carolina.
Really?
But the what we call, or what they will be calling the medical examiner professional is called MWL, a firm called MWL, and if there's been an autopsy center built almost in America, then they've been a part of it.
Okay.
So they're also equipment experts as well, and they're one of the strengths of their presentation was being able to guide and inform owners who maybe don't have a lot of experience with autopsy centers in medical equipment selection and pricing and things like that.
I'm sure that scored very high to have very
It
relevant
sure did.
experience like that.
It sure did.
Could you go over the timelines again for design and construction?
Yeah, so design, all right, so this contract is for advanced planning and conceptual design. Interestingly enough, we've got two projects that potentially are going to, I'm going to say, be co-located to a certain degree. Maybe it's roads, maybe it's utilities, with the potential new jail. So we actually have one of our sub-consultants, we requested Little, who was hired to do the jail, include the same civil designer so that we can coordinate, because this project is tracking ahead of the jail at this point. So we'll, have some, I guess, some effort as we get into design to making sure we accommodate anything that happens on the jail side. As best we can. We're not going to know, everything at that point. But the timeline is anywhere from 9 to 15 months typically. I think it's going to drag to the probably 13, 14 in this case, because we have limited knowledge as a county on building autopsy centers. So it's going to take a little more work, I think, to get all the players at the table understanding what the scope of work is going to be.
Construction, what's your timeline for after
Yeah,
that?
construction, I'm going to say, is going to be a 14-month window, around about. Depending on when we start. If you start in the winter, site work gets delayed. So I always kind of lean towards 14 in case you start in the winter.
And what's the name of the firm again?
CPL?
Okay, I'll make the appropriate motion to approve CPL for the initial design work.
Yes, sir. Architectural service.
Commissioner Sides?
Services. Yep. Yes.
If it would be okay with you, there's a recommended action there for that item, if you could motion to approve that recommended action, just so we make sure we get it just right.
You can just say motion to approve the
Yeah,
recommended
motion to approve recommended action.
Okay, all those in favor of the recommended action, say aye. Aye. Okay, let's see, we got something else. Okay, that takes care of that one. The last one we pulled was 25-278. I will hand this one to Commissioner Helms.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to pull this from consent just really for the purpose of discussion here. So as I understand it, this item, the budget amendment, is to transfer $900,000. And this is coming from capital to operational. Is that correct, Mr. Manager? Okay. Obviously, our sheriff's office is very critical and important to what we have here in Union County. And so I don't want to necessarily impede anything that they have or a need that they have here. However, I would request that this board be given more information, perhaps maybe at a future meeting regarding, the purpose of this transfer and why we're in this situation where we need to transfer capital to operating, if that makes sense.
Certainly. If the board would mind considering this, at this point in time, if we were not to move forward with the agenda item and had to wait 2 weeks or so, the sheriff's office would be in an operational issue. They would not necessarily be able to approve contracts, make payments. There are things they wouldn't be able to do because we're actually at a point where their funding can't sustain that. So I would ask the board, I understand you'd like some additional information, if you wouldn't mind at least authorizing a smaller amount until we can bring you back the additional information that you need. I would recommend at least $150,000 for this 2-week period for us to be able to, again, pay some of the payments, pay some of the overtime that is due, and certainly do the operations while we bring to the board the details and specifics of what exactly we're having to face here with these funds. And that would be my request.
And I appreciate that, appreciate the information. Obviously, we're not talking about a small sum of money here with $900,000. And I think that more importantly, if we have an issue, and I think this is kind of what I'm looking for, but if we have an issue where we have a funding gap or we have some kind of problem that needs to be taken care of, then, again, I'd like more information on that. Maybe staff could bring us back, any problems that have been identified and potential solutions for that. I mean, personally, I'm okay with authorizing a smaller amount, and if we feel confident that $150,000 can suffice until, perhaps our next meeting where we can get more information and approve the remaining deficit, then I would be okay with that action as well. So,
I would like to address, $900,000. So when I hear you requesting $150,000 to tie them over until another meeting, which is 2 weeks, that does concern me. That is the sheriff department out of money, that we would have to make a motion tonight to approve $150,000 to tie them over for 2 weeks. Commissioner Sides, I think you'll appreciate this from our comments earlier in the meeting. This was not on the agenda a week ago when Commissioner Helms and I met with you and set the agenda. So when we got the agenda and started, reading through our packets over the weekend, the need to move almost $1 million from one fund to the other was startling, because we had not discussed it when we set the agenda, and we didn't even hear about it until late today. How did this show up on the agenda? And then there has also been a concern that, when we're talking about capital or CIP, we oftentimes refer to that as one-time money. And this is a request to move one-time money from capital over to personnel, which is ongoing. So I think that is why we would like to have some more information, because it showed up in consent, and we knew nothing about it when we set the agenda. So it was kind of a surprise. And, if there is a funding problem, we need to understand, how we got to $900,000 for personnel. Commissioner Sides.
I'm assuming that the $900,000 you're proposing is to finish out the fiscal year?
So it's a combination, and then, if I say this wrong, I can be corrected. It is to finish out the rest of the fiscal year, but it's also to basically reimburse for what we've already covered out of operational dollars that were available. So the sheriff's office utilized some of their operational dollars in order to accommodate some of these personnel costs. This would help to actually put that back in their operational budget so that they could, again, operate, because there are other things they pay for, like ammunition, fueling, all kinds of things, while we get the board the additional information you've asked. This is related to a number of things. Overtime.
I was just going to say, due to shortages in personnel, that causing undue or unanticipated overtime might be a source of this.
Sure. So overtime is certainly a function of this. Okay. The class and comp is a function of this because, again, there were additional costs that were not necessarily built into their budget that had to be accommodated for. They realized a significant number of payouts. When I say payouts, there were deputies and staffing that retired or left service. They qualify for a payout. Those were unanticipated. There was a significant amount of that they had to address. So there are a number of different items that really sort of the perfect storm all sort of hit all at one time, which generated this unfortunate large number. But I would love to be able to, and I apologize for the late delay on this. I was not aware that this was crisis is the wrong word, but this is an issue where they could not make some of their normal payments without having some additional cash funding until last week. And so we talked about it. I understood they had a major dilemma, and that we really needed the board to put some funding aside to be able to allow them to continue to operate. So we are happy to provide you additional detail. Certainly can do that by the 19th. And would ask that the board just set aside a smaller amount while we bring you greater detail on this.
Sure 150's enough?
I mean, they would always ask for more, but
To the next meeting.
I think 150,000 will certainly cover it. If not, I mean, the one has said that they couldn't make it work for the next 2 weeks.
Madam Chair, thank you. So Brian, again, we want to make sure that our bills are paid, right? And so, if that's 150,000, then so be it. I think that the bigger issue is that, we just don't want to have, requests for budget transfers or budget amendments of 900, of this magnitude in the future.
Yes, sir.
Now, let me ask you this. We just got done talking, Chris just told us about the lock project there at the jail and the potential credit that we can get, from termination of that contract. So would that kind of help us out in this situation here? Is that money, is that dollars that could be applied to potentially fund that deficit at least one time?
Right, absolutely. The funds that were intended to cover this are capital funds within the sheriff's budget. So projects that either A, are completed and there was a surplus left over, or B, they're not going to finish that project, they're not going to do it. Those dollars are what we're going to use to fund this. Now, to the chair's point, those are capital dollars, which are meant to be one-time expenditures and not an ongoing expense. However, the sheriff does not generate really a significant amount of revenue. He's not a revenue generator. So the funds are going to have to come from somewhere. And fortunately, we were able to identify some projects and savings within his budget in the capital side to be able to accommodate this. I will say, and we will talk about this more on the 19th, we'll give you more detail, it is a little bit of an anomaly. I think some of it is the fact that overtime is getting, is growing because, again, they have overtime budget. They have issues where they have to deal with overtime. But part of this has to do with the class and comp and how that affected the budget. And I want to make sure the board understands this. I don't see that in the future we will have this very same issue to deal with. We may very well have to address that overtime has to grow, but it may not be that it's to this level because there were, as I said, a perfect storm, all these things sort of happening at one time that created the deficit that we have. But I want to be able to lay that all out for you so you can see it clearly, understand where it's coming from and where it's going.
I think part of the concern, and I appreciate all of the, explanations for overtime, the class and comp, retirees, the payouts. I think, some of the information we're going to be wanting to see is what was the overtime budget, because I assume that's all been used, it's exhausted. So we're not just talking about $900,000. We're talking about the needed $900,000 to get us to June 30 and paying in the rears for overtime and what has already been used or exhausted in the overtime in addition to the 900,000. So it's actually a lot higher than this. So I think that's the kind of information we would really like to see. And I would like to know what kind of CIP projects were pulled to get to this. So, so would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, let me see if I can craft this. Mr. Kay, you might have to help me out with this one. So I'll make the motion to approve a budget amendment for the Union County Sheriff's Office in the amount of $150,000 in available CIP funding to Union County Sheriff's Office personnel. And then part two of that motion would be to direct staff to bring us back additional information regarding potential budget deficit and also solutions, for this issue in the future to be considered at our next meeting.
Okay.
Is that, we good there? Thank you, Mr. Kay.
Good job. All those in favor say aye. Yes. That takes care of all the things we pulled from consent. I will now I want to recognize the county manager for comments.
I have no comments. Thank you very much.
Okay. We'll stay at this end of the dais. Commissioner Sods.
No comments tonight.
Commissioner Helms.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to thank my colleagues on the board for supporting that resolution against HB 765. Also want to, again, mention that Commissioner Christina Helms is obviously not with us tonight due to the passing of her father. Our thoughts and prayers are with her family as they grieve that loss. We've got Mother's Day coming up, and just want to wish all the mothers out there a happy Mother's Day. We are blessed to have each and every one of you. Other than that, just like to say thank you for everybody for being here. Thank you to our speakers. We had Commissioner Richard Daunt from Waxhaw here. Certainly appreciate his comments as well as yours, sir. Really appreciate you being here with us as well. And with that, I'll say thank you and good night.
Commissioner Balcom.
Yes, thank you. I would also like to extend my condolences to Commissioner Christina Helms and to her and her family. And just encourage everyone to be careful on the way home.
So I have known Christina Helms for, oh my goodness, 10 or 12 years. We served together on the Board of Education. She served 8 years, I served 8 years. And we've had a lot of conversations over the past few weeks. She has worked very, very hard and been very strong, helping take care of her father and her mother, who was her dad's caretaker. So I would like to, recognize her dad, Michael Bird. He went by Mike. Mike and Christina's mother have celebrated 55 years of marriage together. Elizabeth, we just want Christina and her mom and her siblings, Patricia and Mickey, to know that they are in our thoughts and prayers, and they are so proud of her dad. He was a Navy veteran. He served in Vietnam. And after service, he went to the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. And other than loving golf, he loved to cheer for Tennessee. So I just want to say how much we miss Christina being here tonight, and we look forward to her returning. But I told her today it was way more important for her to be with her family. Her son flew in from Florida, and Austin got to see his grandpa before he passed, and he got to be here with Christina and Darren and Elizabeth and his aunt and uncle, and I know that was comforting for Christina to have Austin here because he's a golf pro, so he has had a very special relationship with his grandpa who loved golf. He was so proud of Austin. So I am going to say go Big Orange for Mike because Christina says that would make him very happy. So that's how we're going to end the meeting tonight, is for Mike. Go Big Orange. So I am going to make a motion to adjourn, and all those in favor say aye. Aye. Good night, everyone.